All right, so how are we doing again? It's Thursday. We're gonna start doing them. I think we're gonna do them Thursday from now on. Once a week, we'll do them Thursday. That way, I decided we'll have it for the weekend. So as you can see, I'm not dressed up. I actually ended up working from the home office today. It's like 100 degrees out today, so I figured why not stay in the cool basement. But that's part of the flexibility. And a good thing about this job too is that when there is time, you can work remote. Um, that being said, this is week 3, episode 3, and we're calling it response time. So, again, a failure, a success, and a question. And this week's failure mainly came from I had a customer call, and the customer was asking for information about a loan. So, I wanted to give her the best customer service, etc. I was quick with responding. She called in and she was asking about an FHA loan. Um, Her situation seemed like she might actually benefit from something else. So, in her situation, she's got a house. She's got a 2.8% interest rate on the house. I mean, she loves the area, I found out. She doesn't want to leave. She's dreading leaving. She wants to downsize, but she loves the property. She loves where she lives. She's out in the woods. She has no neighbors, no complaints, and she loves the wildlife. So she wants to stay there. Ultimately, is her goal. But she's asking me for a loan to then downsize and get rid of her house to buy a different house that's smaller at a higher rate. So to me, I'm thinking maybe there's another alternative. Um, the failure comes into play in just a little bit, so bear with me. But ultimately, without being too pushy or too salesy, I suggested a different alternative for her that she didn't even think of. She admitted to me, I've done my research on this, but I've never heard of what you're presenting to me. And what I was presenting was the option to actually take some equity out of the home at the interest rate, today's current interest rate, take a home equity line of credit and build an ADU in the back and then have her children or whoever rent out that main house so she can still stay on her property. She's got 3 acres worth of land. So she has plenty of space. She was showing me her home and stuff. She's got plenty of space and she was really locked in. She was really happy and interested and surprised and excited about this new ADU idea, accessible dwelling unit. So, for those of you who don't know what that is, an accessible dwelling unit is just a tiny home basically on your property, detached or attached to the house. So for her situation where she didn't want to leave and she had this great property at this low interest rate and she didn't want to leave, it didn't make sense for her to leave when there's an option on the table like getting an ADU. So I did. I pitched the idea to her. The company that I work for there's a subsidiary with that company, and the company actually builds ADUs. It's a one-stop shop, so I figured she might be a perfect candidate for this option. Well, after she was all excited, she asked me if I wouldn't mind taking the time to set up a meeting with the person who's in charge of building the ADUs. Said, sure thing. I set the expectation. Now, this is the thing. This is where I think the failure came into play. I set the expectation that, listen, no later than by the end of today, I'm going to give you a call back and we're going to figure out and schedule a time. I just have to ask a few people about their schedules and I'll make it work. So ultimately, I got the answer quick. I was able to schedule a meeting within the hour. Um, have it on books for that same day later on in the day, but get back to her within an hour. Um, I thought that was great customer service. I thought that I was the response time. Again, episode 3, I'm calling it response time because it's heavily related on this response time, and I keep thinking that this might have been a failure for me. I ended up calling the customer back. Um, she didn't answer, but the problem is I called her on my work cell phone. Now, when she called initially on the work office phone. So at my desk phone, I answered and we spoke. So me calling her on my cell phone, I thought, oh, she's probably not going to pick up because it's a spam number or it might look like a spam number. Maybe she's one of those people that just doesn't answer. So you know what? I immediately hung up. I picked up the work phone and I called her back on the work phone thinking, now she's going to recognize the number and maybe that's why she wasn't picking up. I wasn't trying to be pushy or anything, but when she answered, she said, geez, Taylor, I'm not going to do this today. I'm not looking for 5 phone calls within the hour, and you're pressuring me and you're pushing me too much on this ADU thing. And I thought to myself, oh, wow, okay, I just messed that up. I just, that was a failure to me. I thought. I thought, wow, geez, now I'm being too pushy of a salesman. All my banking time, all of my career, I've never been the one to be a pushy salesman. I've never been the one to push something that they don't need. I was trying to come up with a solution. She seemed interested, so I called her. I did my due diligence, and I had a meeting scheduled for that same day. I thought she was going to be excited and happy. Instead, she was annoyed. And I don't know if it was necessarily what was going on with her life. Maybe there was something that happened in the interim, but who knows? So I took this as a failure. Wow, I just lost this lead. This customer just called in. I thought that this person was going to qualify for, a line of credit on the home. We were going to be able to build an ADU for her in the backyard. So I had all of her information and everything, and she seemed very excited to go forward with it. Again, I think personally that that might have been a failure. Reaching out too quickly. Maybe I was too eager to jump the gun too quick on her. I guess that's really up for debate. But the success that I'm having with that is realize that I'm still sticking to my core values. So if it were me on the other end talking about customer response time, I would want somebody to reach out to me as soon as possible. And that's how I do my business. I want to know as soon as possible. So I treat the customer that same way. You hear it all the time. You hear the golden rule, treat others the way that you want to be treated. Well, that's how I conduct business. And I guess in this case, it kind of seemed to backfire. I'm not sure why, again, but I'm just going to say the success in that was that I still ended up sticking to my core value, applying the golden rule, and making sure that I got back to the customer when I thought that the customer, would be excited to hear back from me. So there's my success for the week. I'm realizing that I did my best. And if she wasn't okay with that or if something happened, then who knows? I can't get upset if a deal falls apart just because something happened. I'm not going to put that on myself because I'm not going to let it deter me from applying my core values if a deal falls apart. That's going to happen in this. Everybody that I ended up talking to, people in the office had heard the phone call and they said, "Oh, that sounded great. You know, what's going on with that situation?" I explained it to them, and yeah, basically deals they will fall through and you can't get too stuck on them. You can't get hung up on them. So the response time it is a little bit tricky in my opinion. There's a sweet spot, I think. I think that the success is realizing I'm going to stick to my core values, but I'm also going to play a little bit of the game and I'll have a more appropriate response time. I'll feel out the situation. I'll make it situational. I just thought that this customer was excited, so I wanted to get back to her as soon as possible, and I guess it backfired. Um, so, in conclusion, my question for the week is simple. Did I become too pushy and pressure someone? Did I become salesy? Was I pushing an ADU on this person who really didn't want it when they originally wanted an FHA loan? This week, I think I can answer that, and I think I can successfully say that no, I wasn't being too pushy and I wasn't being too salesy. I was just being me and conducting business as usual, where I found success in that same strategy before. Honest upfront, quick response times, responding to customers I found so much success in that. If somebody emails you, respond quickly. If somebody calls you, answer. If somebody calls you, you miss it, you call them back. You get the idea. It's a very simple concept, but apply that to everyday business. Response time, response time, response time. And eventually people are going to, respect you for how you handle your business so quickly. Now, that being said, I applied the golden rule. Maybe it wasn't for her. Um, but ultimately, maybe we just weren't a good match to do business in the first place, which is why I'm okay with that. So, again, thank you so much for watching. There's one success, one failure, and then a conclusion with questions. We were able to answer them. This is episode 3 of Maxwell Mortgages, and this is episode 3 called The Response Time. Thank you.